In the 15th year of their marriage, Lu Xian lost his memory. He forgot everything. Except for one thing. To elevate Song's concubine to the position of primary wife. I took this opportunity to hand him the divorce papers. I had prepared long ago, yesterday. You said you wanted to divorce me. His eyes reddened. And his hands trembled. As he signed his name and pressed his fingerprint. As I walked out of the Lu mansion, Song-I rushed after me, sister. At least wait for Lin Ge'er to come back from school. Before you leave. Let him see you first. I glanced at the young boy rushing over behind her and shook my head. There's no need. Though he is my biological son, I have no feelings for him at all. After saying that, I walked out the door in large strides. I had lingered too long. At that moment, I only wanted to leave. As far away as possible. Mother. The young man ran up to me and blocked my path. He looked at me with confusion and reproach in his eyes. Why must you do this? His eyes grew red. My father is merely ill. Once he recovers. I did not interrupt him. But he could not continue. Everyone in the Lu mansion knew that although Lu Xian had been married to me for 15 years, he had never felt much affection for me. Yesterday, he went out with a friend and accidentally fell from his horse. The first words he spoke upon waking were, "In this life, I only recognize Lin Ge'er as my wife." He remembers nothing else. Lin Ge'er, your father and your stepmother are deeply in love. Now that I'm leaving to give them their happiness, you should be happy. He was only 14. Still a child. He didn't understand adult matters. But, your son doesn't want you to leave. Can you stay for me? He is my biological son. The only person in this world connected to me by blood. I married Lu Xian because of my parents' wishes and because of my youthful infatuation. But staying in the Lu family for over a decade was for my child. Though he was forcibly given to the childless Song Lianer by Lu Xian from the moment he was born. As a mother, there are endless concerns for one's child. I extended my wrist. Take my pulse one more time. He had studied medicine under Su Tai since childhood. Tasted hundreds of herbs. And his medical skills were exceptional. Lin Ge'er placed his hand gently on my wrist. Furrowing his brows. Staring intently. His fingers trembling slightly. His voice growing hoarse. How could this happen? The poison was already neutralized. A doctor cannot heal himself. He tested the poison on himself and fell into a coma. I tested the antidote on myself and was poisoned. However, Song Lianer also drank the medicine and was poisoned. I always thought she was worried about the child. But after she drank the medicine, she walked over to me and whispered, "There is only one antidote. If Lin Ge'er wakes up, will you give it to him as his biological mother? Or to me as his foster mother?" It turned out that all of this was Song Lianer's scheme. She risked her life. Not because she wasn't afraid of death, but because she knew how much Lin Ge'er loved her. Even if Lin Ge'er hesitated, how could Lu Xian let the woman he loved die like this? The outcome was as she had anticipated. Lin Ge'er hesitated repeatedly but ultimately decided to give the medicine to the woman who had raised him for 14 years. In this game of life and death, the one who must die is me. Whether this poison can be cured, you know best. Don't you? Lin Ge'er's face was pale. And he lowered his head, not daring to look me in the eye. He had sworn that he would cure me. But how could everything in this world go as one wished? I didn't want to spend the few days I had left here, trapped and waiting for someone who wasn't worth it. I walked around him and got into the carriage. The horse's hooves were too loud, and I didn't hear the words he murmured under his breath, "You're not worth it." I traveled northward. The war in the northwest was intense, and the journey was far from peaceful. "Miss, I heard that bandits often roam this area." Qinglu gripped the long sword in her hand tightly. She and Yinshuang were the swords my mother left me. We had trained in martial arts since childhood and were skilled fighters. You've suffered enough following me through all this hardship. The two women exchanged a smile. Miss. You're joking. It's us who've been deceived by you. Their hometown was in the northwest, where there were vast, majestic mountains and endless deserts, completely different from the Jiangnan region where I had grown up. These were the things they had told me, and though I had memorized them, they held little meaning to me. But half a year ago, for some reason, I felt an urgent desire to see it for myself. I lifted the curtain of the palanquin, and the scenery outside had changed from the misty rain of the south to the low-hanging sky of the north. Miss, is that a person? As night fell, a young boy lay motionless in the grass, his blood staining the surrounding grass a dark green. He's a Han Chinese. Let's save him first. The boy was severely injured, with a deep gash on his neck that exposed the bone, and his body was covered in whip marks of various sizes. We found a nearby clinic. The doctor shook his head repeatedly. He can't be saved. Though the whip marks don't look severe. The person who did this was extremely cruel. They poisoned the whip. The boy looked to be only 13 or 14 years old. Was he to die here at such a young age? Please treat him first. Whether he survives is up to his fate. The doctor took the silver and nodded. To our surprise, as dawn broke, the boy's eyes fluttered open, and he regained consciousness. Miss, what is he saying? I leaned in to listen. He was reciting a list of medicinal herbs. Since Lin Ge'er had studied medicine, I had also read many medical texts and seen various herbs. I hurriedly jotted down the names he mentioned. Can these herbs neutralize the poison in your body? He nodded vigorously. The intense desire to live in his eyes moved me as well. The doctor took the prescription. This prescription is strange. Maybe he's just dreaming and making things up. Let's try it. The doctor nodded and went to prepare the medicine. These herbs weren't rare, they could be found at any ordinary pharmacy. The young man drank the medicine for over 10 days, and his complexion improved day by day. By the 20th day, he had fully regained consciousness. Upon inquiry, I learned that his original name was Yu Rong, an orphan who had been raised by an itinerant physician. A few days earlier, the physician had been forced by nomads to treat their general, but he refused, so they burned him alive. He looked into my eyes. Lady, are you poisoned? Before I could answer, he grabbed my hand and took my pulse, remaining silent for a long time, fearing he might feel guilty. I smiled reassuringly. This poison is beyond even the imperial physicians in the palace. You need not blame yourself. After I was poisoned, Lu Xian summoned all the doctors in Jinling, even bringing the imperial physicians to the mansion to treat me. However, after a year of treatment, there was little improvement. He paused, then laughed. So the imperial physicians are all incompetent? What? He looked smug. The lady's poison isn't incurable, it just requires some effort. Yin Shuang eyed him up and down. Don't boast. If you end up harming my mistress, I'll twist your head off. Yi Rong wasn't intimidated. If I can't cure her, you won't need to lift a finger. I'll cut off my own head and give it to you as a keepsake. I laughed. Then I'll leave it to you. We rented a courtyard next to the clinic. Convenient for Yi Rong to recover and for him to treat me. At night, I brought him some soup, seeing him still reading medical books. His slender figure and furrowed brows reminded me of Lin Ge'er, and I couldn't help but remind him, read tomorrow. Be careful not to strain your eyes. He looked up, his gaze falling on the soup in my hands, and his eyes slowly filled with tears. No one has ever cared about me like this before. He had lost both his parents at a young age. Though the doctor taught him medicine, he had a bad temper and often beat him. Yi Rong, if you don't mind, consider me your foster mother. He stared at me in disbelief. You? But I'm just a poor peasant. Foolish child. Is there any mother in the world who would reject her own child because of poverty? He suddenly rushed over, knelt before me, and banged his head on the ground several times. Mother. Ronga. Get up quickly. From that day onward, Yi Rong would always surround me, calling me mother endlessly. Yin Shuang and Qing Lu would cover their ears every time they saw him. One day, Yi Rong went out to buy medicine and didn't return for a long time. Yin Shuang went to look for him time and again. As night fell, she rushed in frantically. Yi Rong got into a fight with the son of a special envoy from the capital while buying medicine. What? The needle and thread in my hands dropped to the ground. Go see what's happening. When we arrived, we saw several officials holding Yi Rong down at the entrance of a pharmacy. Mother? Yi Rong saw me being pushed by a government official and immediately struggled. I hit him. It has nothing to do with my mother. Don't you dare touch her. The government official looked me up and down, his gaze falling on the jade pendant at my waist. Madam, please don't blame us. My young master bought the medicine to treat his wife, but your son snatched it from him, which is very rude. You're lying. I bought the medicine first. As they argued, a young man came out of the pharmacy. Mother? I looked up and saw that the young man was Lin Ge'er. Lin Ge'er walked over to me in a few steps. How did you end up here? Let them go first. Lin Ge'er didn't understand, but he still waved his hand and told the officials to release them. Wait! A rush of footsteps came from behind, and the officials all knelt down to pay their respects. Such a grand display. It couldn't be anyone other than Lu Xian, who had only arrived here yesterday. He walked over slowly, looking down at me from above. Standing beside him was Song-ai. Or rather, she should now be called Lu Lady. What are you doing here? His gaze remained fixed on my face, his fists clenched as if he were holding back something. I looked at Lu Xian. It had been half a year since I left the mansion, and he had grown noticeably thinner. However, his voice and appearance were almost identical to when I first met him. No matter how much time had passed, I still remembered that early spring day when he stood under the willow tree in the courtyard talking to my father, graceful and gentle like jade. My father had said that he was the one who had been betrothed to me as a child. Lu Xian's father had been exiled by the previous emperor and died in exile, leading to the decline of the Lu family. My father, who had lived an upright life, would never renege on the engagement. And I, too, had fallen deeply in love with Lu Xian at first sight. After we married, Lu Xian and I had a period of deep affection, which led to the birth of our son, Lin Ge'er. But shortly after I became pregnant with Lin Ge'er, Lu Xian's mother forced him to take Song Lianer as a concubine, claiming that I was inconvenient to serve her husband. Lu Xian refused vehemently and was punished by being made to kneel in the ancestral hall for a day and night. Out of pity for him, I took it upon myself to bring her into the mansion. Later, I discovered that this had all been a scheme orchestrated by his mother and her. Song Lianer was his childhood sweetheart, but her family background was poor and she couldn't help him in his career. So he married me. Unfortunately, less than 5 months after I became pregnant with Lin, my father was reprimanded by the late emperor for speaking his mind, and soon after returning home, he died of a heart attack. My mother was in poor health and had only given birth to one daughter. Despite my grandmother's repeated attempts to persuade my father to take a concubine, he refused each time. In the end, to put an end to her hopes, she even threatened to take her own life. I believed that Lu Xian and I would also live a life of deep love. But after my father's death, his feelings for Song Lianer began to surface. On the very night I was about to give birth, he forcibly took Lin Ge'er from me and handed him to Song Lianer. He said that Song Lianer was unable to conceive, and that he and I would have children together. That was the child I carried for 10 months, giving birth after 3 days and 3 nights of labor, nearly bleeding to death in the process. And yet, he casually handed him over to someone else with a single sentence. Now, my father is gone. My mother lies bedridden, and Lu Xian has risen to prominence. I have no one left to rely on in the Lu mansion. In order to prevent me from fighting Song Lianer for the child, he asked His Majesty for permission to take Song Lianer and Lin to Qingzhou, where they stayed for 5 whole years. When I saw my child again, he had been raised to be very polite. When he saw me, he knelt 3 times and kowtowed 9 times, calling me mother. However, when he looked at me, his eyes were full of indifference. Do you know where Liangqing is? My thoughts were snapped back to reality by Lu Xian's voice. He stared intently into my eyes, waiting for my answer. It's less than 30 miles outside the city gates. He nodded. Do you know that Liangqing is currently at war? I know. He suddenly furrowed his brows, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me close. Since you know, why did you dare come here? Do you want to feed your blood to the barbarian swords? His grip was so tight it made my wrist sting. Whether I live or die, what does it have to do with you? Lu Xian was about to speak when Song Lianer hurried forward to mediate. Sister, although you have divorced your husband, in the eyes of outsiders, you are still the matriarch of the Lu family. If you die here, how will your husband and Liner live on? Lu Xian let go of her hand and coldly said, Get back to Jinling immediately. Don't make a scene here. Who are you to speak for me? Lu Xian turned around and glared at me. We stood there in a standoff when Song Lianer suddenly clutched her chest and moaned softly, Husband. Lianer is in so much pain. Lu Xian immediately walked over to her, supported her, and turned to look at Lin Ge'er. Since you've already bought the medicine, hurry back to the mansion and give it to your mother to drink. Yes. Lin Ge'er looked worried and immediately ordered someone to take the medicine away. Yi Rong suddenly stood up, pushed the official holding him aside, and rushed forward to protect the medicine with his body. This medicine is mine. I need it to treat my mother's illness. Your young mistress is precious. But does that mean my mother should die? Lin Ge'er wanted to act, but seemed to think of something and looked at me. Lu Xian immediately understood and sneered. I thought you knew there was a battle here. Yet you still came all the way here. Now I know why. Song Lianer's eyes widened in shock. Could it be that my sister knew I needed this medicine and had someone buy it in advance? This medicine had been searched for throughout the entire city by Yi Rong. Fortunately, the shopkeeper and Yi Rong's master were old acquaintances, so they managed to buy it back at a high price from a merchant from the western regions. Lin Ge'er also looked at me in astonishment, his gaze filled with reproach. Mother, how could you do this? Are you trying to kill my stepmother? Lu Xian glared at me coldly. You haven't changed at all. You're still as vicious and heartless as ever. As ever? I slowly approached him and asked softly, Do you remember how I was before? Didn't you forget everything that happened in the past? His expression changed. I only heard it from others. Humph. I had no intention of exposing his pretense. The night before he had his accident, Song Lianer had caused a scene because she wanted to be his concubine. The next day, he fell from his horse and lost his memory, forgetting everything except that he wanted Song Lianer to be his concubine. That's a bit too convenient, isn't it? Sue the shopkeeper? Sue the shopkeeper hurried over. What did you say? May I ask if this medicine was paid for by Yi Rong or by this Mr. Lu? Su Zhonggui was a businessman and did not dare to offend someone like Lu Xian, who was a government official. So he lowered his head and did not dare to answer. Mr. Lu. I turned and looked at Lu Xian. You are so powerful that even the common people are afraid to tell the truth. Lu Xian had always aspired to follow his father's footsteps and become an honest and upright official. Hearing such sarcasm, he glared at Lin Ge'er and coldly ordered Su Zhonggui. Just tell the truth. Su Zhonggui glanced nervously at Lin Ge'er and Song Lianer before whispering. Yes. It was Yi Rong who paid first. That's good. I looked at Lin with a cold smile. The money has been paid. So why did you detain him? Are you trying to rob him? More and more people gathered around. The world was not peaceful at that time, and the common people were deeply troubled by the Hu people. Now that they saw an imperial official coming to bully them, they gradually became resentful. Lu Xian coldly stared at me. What use do you have for this medicine? Lin Ge'er. I looked at him. Tell your father. What use do I have for this medicine? As soon as I finished speaking, Song Lianer groaned painfully a few times. Her face pale. Sister, don't be hard on the child. I am of lowly birth, my death is of no consequence. With that, she clutched her chest and gasped for breath. Lin Ge'er stammered, each word feeling like flames burning him. Mother, why must she have this medicine? Son, I truly do not know. Yin Shuang reached out to support me, her eyes reddening. Young master, how can you say such things? You know very well this is the medicine that will save the young lady's life. Lin Ge'er lowered his head, not daring to face Yin Shuang's questioning, let alone look me in the eye. I suddenly felt like laughing. I must have been out of my mind to ask him such a question. Song Lianer stood up gracefully, walked in front of Lin Ge'er, and shielded him behind her. The young man just said that this medicine was to save his mother. But you said that it was for yourself. Who should we believe? I looked at her and explained patiently. Yi Rong is my son. My only son. Mother. Lin Ge'er suddenly raised his head, his lips pale, staring at me in disbelief. How could you say that? I am your biological son. You are Song Lianer's child. He told me this himself when he was 8 years old. In this lifetime, he will always be Song Lianer's child, and I am merely the mistress of the Lu mansion. He will call me mother in name only. When I was in the Lu mansion, I was your legitimate mother. But now I have divorced your father. I have no connection to you, your father, or the entire Lu family. Mother. I turned away. I am just an ordinary peasant woman. I am not worthy of being called the mother of a Lu family gentleman. Yin Shuang, go get the medicine that Rong Ge bought. Lu Xian reached out to stop her. Do you really not want your own son? I looked up at him, my heart burning like a field scorched by fire. Gray and calm, Lord Lu. On the day I gave birth, the blood in my body had not yet subsided. Yet you forced me to say that my son was dead, and that the one who survived must be Song Lianer's child. Now I have finally done it. You should be happy. Lu Xian's arms trembled slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but he heard Song Ai's delicate gasp behind him. Her body went limp and collapsed to the ground, looking as though she were about to die. Lianer? Lu Xian and Lu Xian were both panicked and hurriedly carried her into the pharmacy. Let's go. The officials looked at each other, but in the end, they dared not stop us. We returned to the courtyard and spent a few peaceful days. But Rong Ge'er remained listless. Did you get hurt that day and not tell me? He shook his head. His eyes filled with tears as he looked at me. Is it because you know medicine that you're kind to me? Your son also knows medicine. Of course not. I'm kind to you because we're meant to be together. You've been without parents since you were a child, and I truly feel sorry for you. I wiped the tears from his face with a handkerchief, and he laughed at me. You're such a big boy. And you're crying? He suddenly blushed, roughly wiped away his tears with his sleeve, and turned his head, still looking pitiful. Actually, I've thought it through these past few days. Even if you took me in as your adopted son for another reason, it doesn't matter. You are my mother, and you always will be. I will honor you, treat you well, and protect you. A wave of warmth washed over me. Since my parents passed away, no one had ever spoken to me like that. In the Lu mansion, I was the high and mighty mistress. Yet I was always the one abandoned. Rong Ge'er. I held the child close to my chest. Mother has only you as her child. No sooner had I finished speaking than a commotion sounded at the door. I looked over to see Lu Xian standing there dumbfounded. the items in his hands dropping to the ground. He hurried inside. Mother. Is he your only child? What about me? Why are you here? He just looked at me. My words felt like a heavy blow. His expression was pained, and his body stiffened. Mother. Are you lying to him? I know you're angry because I disregarded your health and insisted on buying medicine for my stepmother. But I had my reasons. Your poison was supposed to take effect 3 months ago. Now you're fine. Aren't you? I sighed. No longer feeling the heart-wrenching disappointment I once did toward him. You were raised by Song Ge'er, and I don't blame you for your feelings toward her. But Lin Ge'er, I'm also a human being. I can't keep standing behind you, loving you without complaint, after you've abandoned me time and time again. But I am your biological son. You said you would always take care of me. Is it because of those words that he dares to hurt me so ruthlessly? Looking at his face, which bears a striking resemblance to mine, I no longer cared to distinguish. Just consider me a broken promise. He stood there, quietly sobbing. What brought you here today? He wouldn't come looking for me for no reason. The medicine. Before he could finish, Yi Rong rudely interrupted him. You have the nerve to ask for it? What's the difference between this and stabbing my mother to death with a knife? At least that wouldn't have caused her so much pain. Every time the poison takes effect, it feels like 1,000 rats are gnawing at my heart and spreading throughout my body. I've endured this pain for 3 years. Leave. I don't want to see you again. If you're trying to use our mother-son bond to force me to give you the medicine, give it up. Actually, I doubt that Song Ge'er was poisoned. Would she risk her life to scheme against me? Does she hate me that much? Since she entered the mansion, Lu Xian has showered her with favor. Her every need is met with luxury. And even my son is hers. What have I done to deserve her hatred so much that she would risk her life for it? Qing Lu was about to push Lin Ge'er out the door when she saw a figure standing at the entrance. Radiating anger, Lu Xian slowly walked up to Lin Ge'er. His gaze cold and his voice suppressing his anger. What did you just say? Your mother's poison hasn't been neutralized? After I was poisoned, Lu Xian must have feared that if I died from the poison, it would tarnish the Lu family's reputation. And he also feared being accused of mistreating his wife. He summoned countless doctors to treat me, even bringing in the imperial physician. But after months of treatment, I remained unhealed. I could no longer endure the torment. So I bribed the imperial physician to tell Lu Xian that the poison had been neutralized. When the poison eventually resurfaced, he instructed Yin Shuangqinglu to fabricate a plausible excuse to cover it up. My death is not worth Lu Xian's effort to investigate. My death would allow him to elevate Song Ge'er to a higher position, and no one would blame the imperial physician. Lin Ge'er bowed his head, trembling in fear. When did you find out? Lu Xian's voice was filled with suppressed anger. I'm so tired. What kind of play is this? Lu Linshuan's Adam's apple bobbed as he trembled. Half a year ago, when my mother left the mansion, I took her pulse. Lu Xian furrowed his brows. Half a year ago? Lu Ge'er nodded. Lu Xian turned his head, bit his lip, and looked at me. When you left back then, did you intend to never return? He seemed to think of something. If it weren't for that young man, would you still be alive today? You may leave now. Don't let your insincere affections defile my courtyard. Lu Xian looked at the woman before him, an indescribable pain spreading from the depths of his heart. He had nearly lost her for good. He suddenly realized something and turned to ask Lu Xian, does your stepmother know about this? Lu Xian paused, then nodded slowly. She does. Lu Xian took a few steps back, leaned on the stone table beside him to steady himself, and forced a few bitter smiles before rushing out the door. He rode his horse all the way to his residence, making sure no one noticed, and quietly entered Song Ge'er's courtyard. The two of them were talking. The master and the young master have gone to get medicine for the aunt. Song Lianer's brows did not relax at the old nurse's words. She sighed. I hope they really went for me. The old nurse asked in confusion. Actually, there was no need for the mistress to risk her life by drinking that poison. Schwescher has already divorced the master and fled alone to this remote place. She poses no threat to the mistress. Song Lianer glared at her. If she truly posed no threat, why has so much time passed? And I am still just a concubine? Why did the steward merely say she was heartless? And Lu Xian had her beaten 30 times and sent to the estate to work as a laborer? Lu Xian at the door felt as though his heart were being torn apart. He knew pretending to have amnesia was a desperate measure. But there was no perfect solution in this world. He also knew that Shui Yunhua had always hated him. And he didn't want that hatred to grow deeper. Yet he also wanted to fulfill Song Lianer's wish to become a concubine. She was right, Lin Ge'er was growing up. And it was time to discuss his marriage. The status of a concubine's son was never favorable. He wanted to use this to persuade Shui Yunhua to agree. But he knew her temper. She would agree for the sake of the child. But he feared that once she did, he would never be able to set foot in her courtyard again. So, he followed the servant's foolish advice and pretended to have lost his memory. Once Song Lianer was elevated to the position of concubine, he would pretend to take medicine for a few days and blame everything on his amnesia. Perhaps Shui Yunhua wouldn't blame him then? However, he hadn't anticipated that she would directly present the divorce papers and force him to sign. Lu Xian regretted his decision. At the time, he had agreed to sign because he believed that Shui Yunhua loved Lin Ge'er so much. And as long as Lin Ge'er was still in the mansion, everything could be salvaged. However, when he learned from others that the divorce papers had been prepared by Shui Yunhua a year ago, his heart sank. After being married for over a decade, he knew Shui Yunhua's temperament better than anyone else, stubborn and unyielding. She would never back down once she had made up her mind. But even though she had already left in such heartbreak, Song Lianer still traveled thousands of miles to come after her and end her life. Lu Xian thought of this, and rage boiled within him. He kicked open the door and dragged her off the bed. Song Lianer was caught off guard and begged Lu Xian to let her explain, even if he was angry, so she wouldn't die in vain. Lu Xian sneered. Back then, you tested the medicine for Lin Ge'er, but wasn't it to poison Yunhua? Song Lianer widened her eyes, wanting to deny it, but her expression had already betrayed her. Lu Xian was overcome with pain. Was this poisoning the same? Do you have to kill her before you'll be satisfied? Song Lianer refused to admit it. Lu Xian looked at the old nurse beside her and immediately ordered the guards to take her away for torture. Within half an hour, the old nurse confessed everything, including how Song Lianer had deliberately injured herself to prevent pregnancy and taken Lin Ge'er away. Lin Xian returned home and, upon hearing his father's plans to torture his concubine, rushed over. He overheard the old nurse say, all these years, Song Ai has pampered Lin Ge'er in every way, but it was all to drive him away from Schwescher. When Lin was young, his health was poor because Song had poisoned him. Originally, she wanted to kill Lin to make Shui suffer. But the old woman persuaded her to spare his life so that she would have a chance to become a concubine in the future. Lin Xian rushed over and kicked the old woman in the chest. You wicked slave. How dare you frame my mistress? The old woman endured the pain and got up. Young master, even if I had 100 dares, I would not dare to frame her. Have you forgotten when you were 8 years old? Aunt Song made you drink that bowl of silver ear soup? Lin Xian frowned. Of course he remembered. Shortly after he drank it, he had stomach pains. It was his mother who had begged for the antidote at Baohua Temple. 3 steps and 9 bows. To save his life. That bowl of soup was meant for his mother. But she saw him return from school sweating profusely and gave it to him instead. He wanted to tell his father about it. But his mother, out of kindness, did not want him to sever ties with his biological mother. So she forced him to keep it a secret. From that day onward, Every time he saw his mother's hypocritical displays of affection toward him, he would recall that bowl of poisonous soup. He could no longer bear it and finally rushed to his mother's courtyard to tell her, in this life and the next, "I am my stepmother's son. If it weren't for the fact that you are the matriarch of the Lu family, I wouldn't even look at you, you disgust me." Lin Ge'er did not dare to recall his mother's gaze at that time, which was sad and desperate, as if she were a broken clay statue that had been trampled underfoot and completely destroyed. "Wasn't that given by Mrs. Shui?" The wet nurse coughed violently and explained. "The soup was given by Mrs. Shui. But the poison was put in by Aunt Song. She wanted to kill your brother that day." Lu Xian's vision went black, and he collapsed straight to the ground, fortunately being caught by those around him. "It's impossible. My stepmother wouldn't do this to me. It's impossible." He pushed those around him aside and knelt before Song-ai, stepmother. "Tell me. She's lying, right? You raised me with your own hands. How could you do this to me?" Song-ai slowly raised her head to look at him. There was no trace of the kindness she once had in her eyes. Only endless hatred. She hated Lu Xian's eyes, which were so similar to those of that high and mighty slut. She hated his face, which was identical to that of that faithless man. Lu Xian was about to punish Song Lianer, but then he remembered something and laughed. "There's no need for me to punish her. She's been poisoned. She'll be tortured to death soon. Everything Shui Yunhua went through, I'll make you go through it all." Song-ai was not the least bit afraid. She laughed out loud. "You don't really think that by using her own methods against her, Shui Yunhua will change her mind, do you? You're so ridiculous. Do you really think she hates me? Am I the one who caused this situation?" Song-ai looked up. The man was looking down at her from above. Ever since he broke his promise to her, he had always looked down on her like this. Why? Song-ai laughed through her tears. For she was a concubine, a servant, while he was a high-ranking official of noble birth. They were no longer equals. But she refused to accept it. Why should she be the one to pay the price when it was he who had been unfaithful? It wasn't until today that she realized that the person she truly hated was Lu Xian. But she had always lied to herself, telling herself over and over again that she hated Shui Yunhua, who had snatched everything from her. She did not dare to hate Lu Xian. Her life was already hard enough, and she could not hate her husband, who was her sky and her only support. But the hatred in her heart had to find an outlet, and Shui Yunhua became the best target. "Since you took my body, you should not have fallen in love with Shui Yunhua. Since you married Shui Yunhua, you should not have let me into the mansion. You think that by giving me a luxurious life and snatching another woman's son from me, I will be happy and satisfied, and then I will be devoted to you and grateful for everything you've done? Even dogs would find your pitiful guilt disgusting." Song's smile was almost crazy. "You ruined my life and Shui Yunhua's life. Do you think that by killing me, you can make everything go away? Take her away. I don't want to see her anymore." Lu Xian nearly shouted these words in anger. Lu Xian stared blankly at everything unfolding before him. In an instant, everything he had once believed in crumbled to pieces. Their hatred had its roots. But whom should he hate? When Lu Xian arrived, Yi Ron was bringing me the medicine. "This is the last dose. Once you drink it, the poison will be completely neutralized." I nodded and drank it all in one gulp. Yin Shuang hurriedly placed a piece of candied fruit in my mouth. "Miss, your suffering should finally come to an end. It would be best to return to Jinling. I have already arranged for a court physician to examine you before I can feel at ease." Lu Xian looked at me with concern. There were no servants in this courtyard. As long as the door wasn't locked tightly, unwanted guests could easily enter. "Mr. Lu always breaks into people's homes like this. Can I report him to the authorities?" He laughed. "From the clarity of your voice, I can tell your health has improved greatly." After pausing for a moment, He continued, I know it was that slut Song Lianer who framed you all these years. I've already dealt with her. The suffering you endured, I will make her pay back tenfold. 100-fold. Enough. Seeing his smug expression, I felt nothing but disgust. My enmity with her stems entirely from you. If you hadn't been so greedy and wanted everything, I would never have crossed paths with Song Lianer. She wouldn't have ended up like this. And I wouldn't have suffered for 15 years. Now you stand here gloating about avenging me? If you truly wanted to avenge me, you should have killed yourself first. Lu Xian's arms trembled slightly, and he said in a hoarse voice, I still have official business to attend to. I'll come see you another day. With that, he staggered away. He fled back to the mansion. Shui Yinhua's gaze was so similar to Song Lianer's. Did they both hate him? He didn't dare to think about it. Lu Xian had appeared behind him at some point, calling out coldly, Father. Lu Xian turned around and saw the backpack on his shoulder. Where are you going? Liangqing. What? Lu Xian's voice was cold but unusually firm. The Liangqing military camp is in need of a doctor. That is where I should be. Nonsense. Lu Xian was so angry he felt dizzy. You're my only son. How can you go to such a dangerous place? I didn't come here to ask for your permission. I've already decided. You. Lu Xian didn't even glance at him before turning and leaving. Lu Xian looked at the vast mansion, where everyone had either left or died, leaving only him behind. Had they all been driven away by me? This question haunted Lu Xian for a long time afterward, plunging him into nightmares. Mother. I must go to the Liangqing military camp. What? I looked into Lu Ge'er's eyes and knew he had made up his mind. In truth, he had already decided long ago. It was my illness that held him back. Mother. Please rest assured. I'm just going to be a doctor, not a soldier. Nothing will happen to me. He tried his best to comfort me. How could I possibly feel at ease? Although he had followed his master all over the country since he was a child, he didn't know any martial arts. That was the front line, and the barbarians were so brutal. But I also knew that I shouldn't have tried to stop him. I'll go prepare some food for you to take on the road. It was only when I hid in the kitchen that I dared to let my tears fall. Miss. Rong is very lucky. He survived such serious injuries before. So he'll be fine. Early the next morning, Yin Shuang, Qinglu, and I saw Rong off at the city gate, where we saw a familiar figure. It was my mother. Lu Linyuan quickly walked up to me, but when he saw the cold look in my eyes, he did not dare to say a word. Rong Ge looked at the bag on his shoulder. Where are you going? Lu Xian replied softly, Liangqing. To become a military doctor? Lu Xian nodded. Does your father know? But Song Lianer also drank the poison and was poisoned. Lu Xian suddenly burst into tears. Mother. I'm sorry. It was your son who was wrong. I'm sorry. I glanced at the sky, then helped Lu Ge'er tidy his clothes. Holding back tears, hurry on your way, otherwise you won't make it before dark. The sun left. Lu Xian wiped away his tears. Mother. Take care. I turned away and didn't look at him. The two set off together. But after taking only a few steps, Rong Ge suddenly wrapped his arm around Lu Xian's shoulder, giggling and chatting away. Rong Ge. I couldn't help but call out. Rong Ge and Lu Xian turned around at the same time, the latter looking at me with eyes full of hope and longing. Make sure to write back often. Okay. I know. I watched their backs, feeling empty inside. Rong Ge often wrote back, but I never received a single letter from Lin Ge'er. However, Rong Ji's letters always had 3 words at the end, mother as well, written in Lin Ge'er's handwriting. Shortly after they left, a woman came to see me, holding a thick stack of ledgers detailing Lu Xian's corruption and dereliction of duty over the years. After handing them to me, she hurriedly left. Yin Xuan looked at her departing figure. She looks so familiar. Qinglu slapped her forehead. Isn't she the distant cousin of Song Ai? Miss. What does she mean by this? I clutched the ledgers. Recalling Lu Xian's vow to my father, I swear that I will be as upright and incorruptible as my father, loyal to the emperor above and faithful to the people below. It turns out that none of the promises he made were kept. Half a year later, Lu Xian, who had always been known for his integrity, was accused of embezzlement. The emperor was furious and ordered his entire family to be executed. However, Lu Xian had saved many lives in the army and earned significant merits. All the generals in the army jointly petitioned for mercy, and the emperor only confiscated the Lu family's assets, executed Lu Xian, and did not involve Lin Ge'er. On New Year's Eve, Lin Ge'er wrote a letter home, saying that their New Year's Eve meal was very good and they had eggs to eat. The letter still contained the words mother in. The end.